So very good afternoon as per Indian time. Welcome you to this session. First of all, I thank Professor Elena for his nice opportunities to interact and have a discussion about the topic. Recently submitted topic from myself and one of my scholar, Ashita, and Professor Khan and Professor Purnaki. I'm going to talk about the Cohen-Macalenus of a class of graphs. So some of you here may not be aware of what is Cohen-Macalenus. So therefore, I just like to start from a very basic. For the next 1 hour section, I would like to discuss these things in the 5 sections. So I would like to divide it into 5 sections. One is Cohen-Macalenus, which comes from ring theory. I like to give you a short introduction about the Cohen-Macalenus as a ring theory part of view, and then how the ring theory part of view comes into the combinatorial object like graph theory. So the second part is about how the Cohen-Macalenus in terms of graph theory, and the third one is we like to go into the one of our recent work, Cohen-Macalenus of a graph GN. I would like to, in the later part, I would like to give you the definition of this graph GN and its complement. The fourth topic is Cohen-Macalenus of its complement graph G dash of n. And finally, if time permits, I would like to go with Cohen-Macalenus of unit graph. So it depends upon the time. So with this basic, I just move on to my next slide. I also, whenever you have any questions or you wanted to add something, you may interact with me at any slides. So you don't want to wait up to the end. If you wanted to have any discussion, please. So I just move on to the Cohen-Macalenus as a ring theory version. This is the concept, comes from algebraic ring theory. Definition first, before wanted to go into the large definitions on the terms of Cohen-Macalenus. Since I'm going to concentrate about the graph theory version of the Cohen-Macalenus, I don't want to go very deep into this ring theory. That's why I took my rings as Noetherian rings instead of considering every ring, to give it the better and a short introduction about the what you call like Cohen-Macaulay. I just give you a basic idea which has been come from Noetherian rings. The choral dimension. So let me start with the definition like choral dimension. The choral dimension of a Noetherian ring R is defined to be the maximum length of proper chain of prime ideals in R. So which is nothing but the maximum n, such a way that there is a sequence of prime ideals P0 up to Pn in R. So we have to find this maximum about the sequence of prime ideals is called the choral dimension. And then I like to move on to R sequence. So R sequence, a sequence of element in a Noetherian local ring R is called an R regular sequence if it is a sequence of non-zero elements x1 to xn in the maximal ideal of R. There must be a maximal ideal such a way that first element x1 is not a zero divisor in R. So I need to have one element a non-zero zero divisor, one not a zero divisor element, and I need the rest of the element from x2 to xn as they are not a zero divisors in the quotient ring R by ideal generated by x1 to xk minus 1. Okay, this is what the R sequence. So since we have a two length, the maximum length of your R sequence in a Noetherian local ring is called depth. So we have a two concept. One is choral dimension, another one is depth. If these two concepts are equal, suppose the dimension of R and the depth of R is equal, then the corresponding Noetherian local ring is called Cohen-Macaulay ring. Okay, so corresponding Noetherian local ring. And finally, I just give you the basic definition about the Cohen-Macaulay of a ring. There are several ways to define this ring, but for the time constraint, and also I don't want to go deep into the ring theory version, I give this type of definition that a Noetherian ring is said to be Cohen-Macaulay if all of its localizations at its maximal ideals are Cohen-Macaulay. So we have to take in a ring correspondingly each localization. If each localization is Cohen-Macaulay, then the corresponding ring is called Cohen-Macaulay. So this is actually a part of ring theory. This Cohen-Macaulay rings is a significant important in commutative algebra and also algebraic graph theory. These two areas, it has a significant importance. Moreover, these Cohen-Macaulay rings are wonderfully precise because they lie within the intersection of algebraic graph theory, algebraic topology, combinatorics, and commutative algebra, the four major parts in mathematics. Since this is one of the active areas, these four has some active research areas in research areas. Therefore, this Cohen-Macaulay is one of the active research areas, as well as it has been interacted with many of the researchers. So I would like to say a quote from Kocher, who wrote, right, when a local ring is not Cohen-Macaulay, life is much harder. Therefore, we always need the local ring should be a Cohen-Macaulay. Okay, but one of the fundamental question is how to classify the Cohen-Macaulay rings. So finding the Cohen-Macaulay rings, though the Cohen-Macaulay rings keep appear in commutative algebra, they are not easily recognizable. So if I give you a ring and I am asking the question whether this ring is Cohen-Macaulay or not, then just with the knowledge of commutative algebra, it is very hard to say that whether the given ring is Cohen-Macaulay or not. So even for the ring with the smaller order, even for 10, 15 elements ring, it is very hard to find whether the given ring is Cohen-Macaulay or not. So this is one of the main difficulties people facing from commutative algebra. Therefore, they moved this subject into the commutatorial objects like simplicial complex and other things. So therefore, from commutative algebra into combinatorial objects, let's see how they are transforming this problem into combinatorial objects. So before moving on to the combinatorial object, I will like to give you the basics ones like simplicial complex. Simplicial complex, take a integer, positive integer, n greater than or equal to 2, and consider that this set we used to notate it as a set n 0 up to n minus 1. Then the simplicial complex of this n is the set n is the collection of subsets of n should have two properties, should satisfy two properties. The first one is always the singleton element should be the part of this delta. Okay, so the singleton element is always will be the part of the simplicial complex, and the second one is this delta is closed under taking subsets, which is nothing but if I have an element in the delta, if f dash is subset of its, then all its subset must be an element of the delta. So very simple definition for simplicial complex. And then every element of this delta is used to call it as phase, and what is its dimension means number of element in the f minus 1. Okay, so and I would like to give you the definition of simplicial complex. The definition of the simplicial complex, delta is denoted by diameter of delta, is defined to be d minus 1. The d is nothing but the maximum dimension of the phase. Okay, so nothing but the maximum cardinality of the phase which lies in the simplicial complex. So in the terms of combinatories, I have a structure like simplicial complex. Therefore, I gave its definitions. Let's move on to the combinatorial aspects of the ring theory, like Streinli-Reisner ideal. So what is Streinli-Reisner ideal? Let me have a field. Let me take it as K, and S is the corresponding polynomial ring. K is K of x naught to xn minus 1 is a polynomial ring with n variables over a field K. Now what is the delta? I'm having a delta as simplicial complex as I defined earlier. Now for every subset, an element in this simplicial complex, we set xf. Xf is nothing but the collection of all product of all the element xi. This I is in f, corresponding f. Okay, so here is a simplicial complex. Corresponding the variables can be producted, and I have given it as xf. Now what is Streinli-Reisner ideal of this simplicial complex? Is an ideal of, we use this S, this polynomial ring, which is generalized by the sequence square-free monomials. So this is actually a square-free monomial xf with f is not an element of delta. So I should take all the f's which are not part of this simplicial complex. So the notation is given here. We used to denote it in this way. Okay, what is Streinli-Reisner ring corresponding to this simplicial complex? The Streinli-Reisner ring corresponding to the simplicial complex is denoted by using the field K. K of delta is defined to be nothing but the quotient ring, polynomial ring K of x naught to xn minus 1 by this I delta. Okay. Therefore, I have a Streinli-Reisner ideal. Correspondingly, I have a Streinli-Reisner ring. Now I move on to what is Cohen-Macaulay in terms of simplicial complex. A simplicial complex delta is called Cohen-Macaulay over a field K if the ring K delta is a Cohen-Macaulay ring. Okay, so we have Stanley-Reisner rings. Similar way, for each simplicial complex, I can associate a Stanley-Reisner ring. If this ring is Cohen-Macaulay, then I should going to say the corresponding simplicity complex as Cohen-Macaulay over a field K. Okay, so initially I give you some basic definitions about ring theory, and then I just move on to simplicial complex, and finally I arrived at graph theory. So I wanted to connect all these three. So let me start with graph theory. In 1990, Villari introduced the concept of edge ideal for each graph. So I have a graph, simple graph. I start with the simple graph. Let G be a simple graph whose vertices I just label it as x1 to xn. And since I just label it as x1 to xn, I can have a polynomial ring over a some field K. So K of x1 to xn be a polynomial ring of these n variables over a field K. Then what is edge ideal? We used to denote it as I of G is an ideal generated by all the edges of G in K of x1 to xn. So nothing but I have edges in graph. So I'm going to collect all those edges, and I like to know whether the ideal generated by these edges in the corresponding polynomial ring K of x1 to xn minus 1. Okay, so that is nothing but this I of G is nothing but the ideal generated by the edges xi to xi, xj, each ij are the elements of the edges. So which is always a subset of, as we know, this is subset of the polynomial ring x1 to xn minus 1. So from a graph, I have an ideal in the polynomial ring. This ideal we used to call it as an edge ideal. Okay, so the corresponding ring, as you maybe guess, the corresponding ring is called the edge ring. So nothing but the quotient ring over this polynomial is called the edge ring of a graph. And finally, I just give you the definition of the Cohen-Macaulay graph. So since I have a graph, then I have an edge ideal. Corresponding to the edge ideal, I have an edge ring. If this edge ring is Cohen-Macaulay, corresponding to the ring theory definition, if suppose this edge ring is Cohen-Macaulay, then we used to call the corresponding graph as Cohen-Macaulay. Okay, so this is a nice combination from the ring theory combinatorics, especially in the graph theory version. So I have a ring structure. We used to call it as a Cohen-Macaulay ring structure. Corresponding to, we move on to the simplicial complex, and then graph. I have a beautiful structure called edge ideal. Using this edge ideal, I have an edge ring. Using this edge ring, whether this ring is Cohen-Macaulay, then we used to call it the corresponding graph is Cohen-Macaulay. So what's the use? I am connecting a ring theory to a graph. So what's the use? If someone may ask, what's the use of this? Yes, we have a use. Suppose I have given you a graph, a simple graph, cycle on four vertices. I just labeled at x0, x1, x2, x3. Then the corresponding edge ideal, since I already told you, this is an ideal. Edge ideal means ideal generated by its own edges. Therefore, x1, x0, x1 is an edge. So I mentioned here, and then x1, x2 here, and then x2, x3, and finally x3, x0. These are the four edges in the graph. Therefore, this is an ideal generated by this graph. Now, what is the corresponding edge ideal? This is a corresponding edge ideal. Now the question is, if this graph is not Cohen-Macaulay, then I can able to say that this corresponding ring is also Cohen-Macaulay. This is the beautiful relation. So since I have many other components to use to play with graph theory, in the later part, I am going to tell you what are the properties which are available in graph theory, which help us to find whether a graph is Cohen-Macaulay or not. So using those property, I can say this graph is Cohen-Macaulay. So which means correspondingly, I can have this ring structure is also to be Cohen-Macaulay. So this is what the basic observation about this Cohen-Macaulayness of graphs. So as I already told you, there are many tools available in graph theory to deal with. So one of the beautiful structure which will be very much related to this edge ideal, especially is a simplicial complex. Since I have a simplicial complex structure in terms of integers or number theory or maybe a combinatorial object, and in graph theory, I have a concept like independent set. This independent set play a role in simplicial complex. Let me explain how it be. So before into that, I just like to give you the basic definition of independent set of a graph. Maybe you are aware of these definitions. An independent set of G is a set of vertices with no two of which are adjacent to each other. So I should have a set in which no two of the vertices are adjacent. So this is what called independent set. So an independent set is called maximal independent set of G if the set cannot be extended into a large number of independent sets, which means it is maximal with respect to the independent set property. So for sake of convenience, I would like to give you an example with 5 vertices. So here I labeled at V1, V2, V3, V4, V5. I just take it this graph as G. So what are the independent set? For your sake of convenience, let me take it all the singleton set is always independent set, like V1, V2, V3. If you take any singleton set, it should be an independent set. And since if I take V1 and V2, there must be edge between them, therefore it cannot be an independent set. Whereas if I take V1 and V3, there is no edge between, therefore V1 and V3 is an independent set. Similarly for V1, V3, V4, this is actually a maximal independent set. V1, V3, V4. Suppose if you add anything on into that, like if you add V2 here, then V2 is adjacent to V1. Or suppose if you add V5 to here, then it is also be adjacent to V1. Therefore, this is an maximal independent set. I cannot extend this into a larger independent set. Therefore, we have a concept like independent set and maximal independent sets. Okay. So now my question is this collection of all independent set of a graph form a simplicial complex? So I will give actually 1 minute of time, just have a look up about this. Whether if I collect all the independent sets, can it form a simplicial complex? Hope you remember the definition of the simplicial complex. Simplicial complex, I have to satisfy 2 conditions. So I need to have a set. I need to collect all its subsets. And these not all the sets, I have to collect some subsets, which should satisfy 2 conditions. One is singleton set is always an element of this. And the closure with respect to the subset should be satisfied. Yes, in terms of independent sets of a graph, this collection of all independent sets actually should form a simplicial complex. For example, take a graph, simple graph G, and its label its vertices as V1 to Vn. And I wanted to collect all the set of all independent sets as delta. I put everything into here. I need to check the 2 conditions. As you may know, always the singleton set is part of this delta. Therefore, first condition is always true. For about the second condition, if yes, a set is independent set, obviously its subset is always independent. Since therefore, if A belongs to delta and B is a subset of A, then obviously B is an element of delta. Okay, for this reason, what you have this collection of all independent set form a simplicial complex. That's why we are going to define this simplicial complex of a graph. So yeah, simplicial complex of a graph is nothing but is defined to be delta of G, which is nothing but the collection of all sets A in G such a way that A is an independent set of G. So if I am collecting all the independent set of a graph, this will give you a simplicial complex. Why this is very important? This is the interesting result, one of the most powerful result actually. Edge ring of a graph. We already come across with the edge ring. The edge ring of the graph and the Stanley-Reisner ring of the simplicial complex of the graphs are same. So just now I defined the simplicial complex. According to simplicial complex, I may have a Stanley-Reisner ring because I may have a Stanley-Reisner ideal. From Stanley-Reisner ideal, I can have a Stanley-Reisner ring. So one side I have a Stanley-Reisner ring, and the other side for graph I have a edge ring. Correspondingly, I have a edge ideal, and correspondingly I have a edge ring. This edge ring and the graph from simplicial complex to Stanley-Reisner ring, these two are not one another same. These two are same. Therefore, this is one of the major reform in the subject. Using these clarifications, we have moved on to the subject called Cohen-Macaulay using the tools. So before that, I need to have one more definitions because I wanted to give you an example how we can find the Cohen-Macaulay of a graph. For that, we have many tools. One of the such tool is F vector. So I would like to give you the definition of the F vector of a simplicial complex. Let delta be a simplicial complex with the dimension d minus 1. Fi denote the number of faces. Faces is nothing but the members of delta. So the Fi's are the members of delta according to the dimension I. Here dimension is also we note that number of element minus 1. Okay, now consider the sequence f delta, f of minus 1, f naught, f1 up to the f of d minus 1 is called the F vector of delta. What is this f? These are the corresponding, denotes the number of phases, corresponding phases in the simplicial complex. Okay, here note that as I told you, always the empty set is part of the simplicial complex. Therefore, delta's empty set is the only set who have phase dimension as minus 1. Therefore, f of minus 1 is always 1, right? In terms of f of 0 is nothing but the singleton sets, the number of singleton sets available in delta. Okay, now corresponding to F vector, I have another concept like H vector. H vector of a simplicial complex is nothing but I can compute this H vector using F vector with some formulas. Okay, this here is the formula I equal to 0 to the dimension of the simplicial complex. Fi minus 1 into a parameter t minus 1 power d minus I, which is equal to the sum of I equal to 0 to the same dimension hi t power d minus y. Since I am equating these two equations using F vector, I can calculate the H vector. So since if I have a graph, then I told you that the corresponding simplicial complex is nothing but the collection of all independent sets, and then from the collection of all independent sets, I move on to find the F vector. From F vector, I can able to find the H vector. Using these two vectors, I can able to say something about the Kohelmeckeliness of the graph. Let me see how it be. So I am going to consider this graph. You please, if you remember this graph is nothing but a C4 with the singleton set, isolated vertices x3. So I am labeling this as x1, here x2, and x3 as the singleton where x4 and x5. This is the graph for me. So here is the graph again I brought here. So I wanted to find what are the maximal independent sets. So what are the maximal independent sets available here? Since x3 is part of all the independent set, I should collect x3. And then for here, if I took x1, then I should not take x4 and x5. Therefore, I can be able to choose x2. Therefore, x1, x2, x3 is one of the independent set, maximum independent set. And similarly, the other maximal independent set is here. Again, if I choose x4, I have to choose x5, and together with the x3 will give you a maximal independent set. Actually, this graph has exactly two maximal independent set, namely x1, x2, x3, and x3, x4, x5. Now I am going to construct my simplicial complex. My simplicial complex? This simplicial complex is nothing but I am going to consider all its generates nothing but subsets of these maximal independent sets. So which means I have two maximal independent sets. I need to consider all its subsets. So what empty set is always part of this, and then singleton set x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. These are the 5 sets of singleton sets. And then how many of the edges with the independent set properties? So I have to collect all the 2 subsets of here. So here the 2 subsets are x1, x2, x1, x3, and x2, x3. And for here x3, x4, x3, x5, and x4, x5. Okay, therefore 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 sets of order 2. And finally, there are 2 sets of order 3. So here it is. Therefore, here the dimension is 3 and minus 1, 2. Therefore, I have f of minus 1, f0, f1, and f2. What is f of minus 1? I asked, as we discussed earlier, it is nothing but 1. And the f of 0 is independent sets of cardinality 1. That means there are 5 vertices here, therefore 5. And there are 6 sets of order 2. Therefore, f of my 1 is 6. And there are 2 sets of order 3. Therefore, f3 is 2. This is why we can be able to calculate a corresponding f vector of a graph. So this is the corresponding f vector of this graph. Now I'm going to construct the H vector from this one. So this H vector is nothing but I already told you there must be an equation is here. So I'm going to substitute this f vectors into this equations, and then I will do some calculations, and finally I come to arrive at this H vector is 1, 2, minus 1, 0. So now the combinatorial objects come into play. We have a result that if any one of the H vector is negative, then the corresponding graph is not Cohen-Macaulay. Okay, I am going to use this simplicial complex result, so which says that since I have -1 as a part of H vector, which means this corresponding graph is not Cohen-Macaulay, which equivalently says that the corresponding edge ideal, since I have a graph with this, so x1, actually here I mix x5, okay, so k of x1 to x5 and ideal generated by all the 4 edges is also not Cohen-Macaulay. So here, this is where we can have a relation between graphs and simplicial complexes. So graphs and simplicial complexes are widely used structure in the characterization of the Cohen-Macaulay polynomial rings. Edge ideals act a strong connection between the graphs and the monomial ideals. Okay, so this is what we are going to discuss. Let's move on to the next one. So what are the works already available in terms of graphs to find whether a given graph is Cohen-Macaulay or not? So in the 1990s, Villari found all subclasses of Cohen-Macaulay trees. So simply give what are the trees which are all Cohen-Macaulay and what are the trees which are not Cohen-Macaulay. So here is the corresponding result. Let G be a tree. Then G is Cohen-Macaulay if and only if the number of vertices is vertices is either less than or equal to 2. In that case, it is nothing but either a singleton vertices or otherwise k2. Or I have to have the number of vertices should be a 2r, which means nothing but a even number. It should be an even number with G has a perfect matching. I should need to have a perfect matching with the labeling x1, y1, x2, y2 up to some xr, yr, such a way that which means it should be a perfect matching with the degree. The degrees of the xi should be 1 and degrees of ya in the graph must be more than 1. Okay, this is what if I have a per matching and then the corresponding tree is Cohen-Macaulay. So here I have given 2 examples, one with respect to Cohen-Macaulay, the other one is non-Cohen-Macaulay. So nothing but here I have 4 vertices with the partition. I can take this as x1, this is y1, and here this is x2, this is y2. Then in that case, degree of x1 and x2 are 1 and degree of y1 and y2 are more than 1. Therefore, this satisfies the condition of the Cohen-Macaulayness of the tree. Therefore, this graph is Cohen-Macaulay, whereas this graph have only 3 vertices which not satisfy the even number of vertices cases. Therefore, this is not Cohen-Macaulay. Next, the bipartite graphs are already characterized by Herzon and his team. Professor Herzon and Hibabi, they did it in the year 2005, that what are the bipartite graphs are Cohen-Macaulay. Here the corresponding result, they are considering the bipartite graph G with the partition set V and W, and it should be satisfy the following 2 conditions. One, G is the following conditions are equivalent, which is nothing but a graph is Cohen-Macaulay if and only if the cardinality of each partition set V and W should be equal. That means it should be equally partiated with vertices set I can label at x1 to xn, the other part is as y1 to yn. With it should satisfy this condition. This xi, yi are edges. First of all, each xi and yi should be an edge. And if xi and yi is an edge, then I can label this I and j indices. So here it is another mistake. Here I and it is j. Therefore, this is nothing but this is I should be always less than or equal to j. And third, if xi and yj are an edge, and similarly the corresponding index j, for this j I should have an xj, and with some yk are edges, then the transitivity properties come into play, like this xi and yj should be an edge. So if the bipartite graph sat labeling in this manner, then the corresponding graph is Cohen-Macaulay, otherwise it not. So if you apply this in terms of complete bipartite graph with the same number of m and n, then this graph is Cohen-Macaulay only when that m and n equal to 1, which means K2 is the only complete bipartite graph which can be treated as Cohen-Macaulay. So this results give you a lot of non-Cohen-Macaulay bipartite graphs, which means the corresponding polynomial ring is also not Cohen-Macaulay. So instead of finding the polynomial rings in terms of ring theory to find whether the ring is Cohen-Macaulay or not, this results give you a lot of bipartite graph. These bipartite graphs give you a lot of non-Cohen-Macaulay rings. So here I give you an example of Cohen-Macaulay and non-Cohen-Macaulay bipartite graphs. So these two are the examples for the corresponding bipartite graphs. Let me move on to the caudal graph version. So you may know what is caudal graph. For every cycles of length more than 3, you should have a chord between them, if such a graph is called caudal graphs. So here is the corresponding theorem. A caudal graph is Cohen-Macaulay if and only if it is well covered. So well covered is nothing but if the size of the maximal ideal is same for all the maximal independent sets, then the corresponding graph is called well covered. Okay. So here is an example. Again, I would like to give you the example for caudal graphs with Cohen-Macaulay and non-Cohen-Macaulay. This graph is non-Cohen-Macaulay because it is not well covered. I should cap the independent sets of 2 cardinality. For example, if I label this as V1, then the singleton V1 is a maximal independent set because we cannot able to import in this V1 into either V2 or V3 or V4. Okay, therefore this singleton set V1 is a maximal independent set. Similarly, if I consider this V2 and this V4 as one part of the maximal independent set, then this is also a maximal independent set, which means I have a 2 different cardinality of the maximal independent set. Therefore, this graph is not well covered. But here you can find this graph is well covered. All the maximal independent set have same cardinality. So let us move on to the Boolean graph. Actually, this is the last type of characterization available in terms of graph for trees, for bipartite graphs, and then for caudal graphs. And now we have for Boolean graphs. These are the only 4 characterizations are available in terms of Cohen-Macaulayness. Okay, so I would like to give the definition of the Boolean graph. So Boolean graph is, again, you take this set 1 to n, and the S is a power sets of this one. And a finite Boolean graph denoted by B of n is a graph defined with the vertex set. You can consider all the subsets of this n except the full set and the empty set, in which 2 vertices m and n are adjacent if m intersection n is empty. Finally, I should have one more thing. What about the characterization about the Boolean graph? Here it is the characterization result. All Boolean graphs and its complements are Cohen-Macaulay. So here we have a large class of Cohen-Macaulay graphs. So here is the example. So here B3 is a graph, B3 dash its complement. What we said is graph and its complement are Cohen-Macaulay. Therefore, the corresponding edge ideals of these graphs are also be Cohen-Macaulay. This is what the graph theory come into play. We have a large number of characterizations in terms of Cohen-Macaulayness of rings. Okay, so with this basic introduction, one more thing. So because of the time constraint, I may leave these things. This is a circular graph. You are all aware about the circular graphs. So circular graphs is, you may consider the vertex set as Sn, whose GCD of xn minus x comma n is 1. This x is the part of this set, the n0 to n minus 1. Consider a circular graph Cn of Sn have a characterization 70 and its complement. This is what the corresponding characterizations. Here is the circular graph, definition of the circular graph. Here, if you take 2 vertices and the x minus y, either x minus y is an element of S or n minus cardinal of x minus y, which means nothing but circular graphs of a group. So similar group we have considered here as circular graph of this vertex set n. Okay, here there also the characterization has been done in recently in 2020 in a paper of Journal of Algebraic Combinatorics. Here the authors are characterized that this circular graph is Cohen-Macaulay if and only if either n equal to 1 or n is a prime number or its complement is Cohen-Macaulay for all, and the complement of this graph is always Cohen-Macaulay. So this also give you a large class of Cohen-Macaulay and non-Cohen-Macaulay graphs. So this is what the things which are available in the literature, especially the Cohen-Macaulay. Here I have drawn the Cohen-Macaulayness of C3 of S3 and the non-Cohen-Macaulay of C8 of S8. Since this is non-Cohen-Macaulay, but whereas this is, since P3 is prime number, this is Cohen-Macaulay. Okay, with this basic introduction, we now move on to my second part of the lecture, which is all about our results, which we have recently done with, like GN. I would like to introduce this graph GN. We don't want to name it. There is no name for this in the literature. This was defined by Gilbandi. Let's take n is an integer with greater than or equal to 2. The graph GN is obtained by letting all the elements from 0 to n minus 1 to be the vertices and defining distinct vertices x and y to be adjacent if and only if GCD of x plus y comma n is 1. So since I am having a vertex set with the n element 0 to 1 2 up to n minus 1. Suppose if a GCD of the sum of two elements with respect to the n gives you 1, then I am going to give the adjacency. Otherwise, there is no adjacency in the graph. This is what the graph we mean for G of n. So what is G of phi? Let me take the vertices as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. And I have to given if there is GCD of x plus y, my n is 1 here, phi is a prime number. Therefore, 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 2 is 2. So any number is less than phi gives you the GCD of any number comma n gives you 1. Therefore, this is actually a complete graph. Except it's not complete graph actually, except from 1 to 4, because 1 plus 4 gives you 0. That means GCD is not equal to 1. Therefore, except 1 edge less than for all 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let me move on to the main theorem. This is why I like to give you the main theorem, which is proof. I would like to give the proof of it as well. So I am considering the main theorem. The statement of the main theorem is let n greater than or equal to 2 be an integer. Then the graph G of n is Cohen-Macaulay if and only if n is exactly 2. So this means this graph gives us a large classes of non-Cohen-Macaulay rings. So this is what the main reason this results impact in the Cohen-Macaulayness. So what we have a result. So I need the following result, which is very much useful in my result, that a graph is Cohen-Macaulay, then it is well covered. Since we have a simplicial complex, the collection of independent sets form a simplicial complex. In such a cases, the well coveredness is very much necessary to have a Cohen-Macaulay graph. Therefore, this result play a vital role in our proof. So to characterize the Cohen-Macaulayness, what we wanted to do is we wanted to characterize the well covered graphs first. So which means we are trying to characterize all well covered graphs as a first phase, and then using this result we are going to apply some of the conditions over it and then try to find characterized all Cohen-Macaulay graphs. This is what our entire proof structure. So let me have, before that I need an notation. So I use this notation as A plus IP. A is nothing but so first of all, P is a prime divisor of n. So I have an integer n. Correspondingly, the prime divisor P, we used to call it as P, and take an element A from anywhere between 0 to P minus 1. And then we are going to define this A plus IP. This A plus IP is part of the set n, which is nothing but set of all A plus KP, where K lies between 0 to n by P minus 1. So you have this result. From this, clearly we can have, this gives you a partition of the set, a vertex set of GM. This clearly a partition set of this n, and each partition set have the exactly cardinality n by P, which means I have a P partition. So what I did here, this notation gives me a liberation that this set, this is actually a vertex set of my graph n of G, the G of n. Therefore, for my vertex set of my graph, this gives you a P. Let me start from here, the well coveredness of G of n. So I'm going to prove the well coveredness of G of n in the first space, and then I would like to move on to the Cohen-Macaulayness characterization. For that, I need a notation like this one. what is that? A plus IP. This P is nothing but the divisors of n, and A is an integer between 0 to P minus 1. Then I am considering this as a for my convenient notations. Why this notation I require? Actually, this notation is giving a partition set of G of n. Actually, this gives a partition set of G of n, and the partition sets have equal cardinality, which like n by P, which means my vertex set of my graph can be partitioned into P sets, each of them having the equal cardinality subsets. So for this reason, I would like to notate this as A plus IP. As I informed you earlier, I would like to go with the well-coverness characterization first. For that, what we plan to have, first of all, we considering the 2 power and then prime power, and finally end up with the composite integer. So this is what we have characterized. We have a 3 lemma. First is for the integers of type 2 power some alpha, and then integers of type prime power alpha, where the P is not equal to 2, and the final stage we have to complete it for all the composite integers. So I'm first level I'm considering n equal to 2 power for alpha is a positive integer, and A is a maximal independent set of the graph G of n if and only if either this A is I2 or this A is 1 plus I2. Okay, either one of these two sets only the independent set of this graph, which means both of them having the cardinality of equal size, this G of n is well covered. So I would like to give you the proof of this. The proof is very simple. Let x and y be two distinct vertices of G of n. If both x and y lie in either x2 or 1 plus x2, then GCD of x plus y comma n not equal to 1. And so x and y are not adjacent. Simply, I can take any, if I take two elements from I2, my I2, have you remember what is my I2? Here is the I2. So which means since P is the only prime divisors here, 2 is the only prime divisors here, therefore this set have n by 2 cardinality, which means I have only two partiate sets. Each of the sets, there is no edge between each partiate sets. So this is what the first observation. And what is about the second observation? If I take one element from I2 and another one from 1 plus I2, then what it have? Obviously, the GCD of x plus y give you an odd number comma n will give you 1. GCD of the odd number comma n is 1. Therefore, x and y are adjacent. So this graph here, our graph is very simple. Our graph is nothing but kn by 2 comma n by 2. Therefore, the graph is always well covered. So as I said to you, I just move on to the prime power. If n equal to prime p alpha, then as alpha is a positive integer and p is a prime which is not equal to 2, then this graph G of n is not well covered. I would like to give the proof of this. This proof is also a very simple one. Therefore, I would like to give the proof of it. Let x comma y is a 2 element from IP. Then what it happens? The GCD of x plus y comma n is not equal to 1. Therefore, what if we have either x in IP or y is in the other part of IP. In this case, x plus y comma n is 1. Therefore, the distinct vertices of G of n which lies in IP are adjacent. And every vertex outside of IP is adjacent to any vertex of IP. So this will give you the partition. Therefore, IP is a maximal independent set. There is no edge between the elements of the IP, and there is always an adjacent between the element from IP to the rest of the elements. Therefore, this IP is a maximal independent set. So what should I need to prove? Please note that I need to prove that G of n is not well covered, which means I need to prove that I need to have another set, another maximal independent set whose cardinality is not this IP. This is what I need to prove. Please note that the cardinality of IP is nothing but n by p. So I just try to find one more independent set, maximal independent set whose cardinality is not equal to n by p. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm choosing an element u belongs to the n different IP. So I'm taking an element which is not on part of IP, and I took another one element anywhere from n. So and again, what is this b? I can consider this b in terms of u like z minus u mod n. Since z is in IP, U is in n different IP, this V is always here in the vertex. Okay, next, since this P is not 2, what we have, this U and V are always distinct, which means I have a 2 different element. What I am going to prove is this UV is a maximal independent set. So this is what I am going to prove. So what I need to, since I already told you this U plus V comma N is not equal to 1, U and V are not adjacent. It is very simple. So what I need to prove, I need to prove the maximality. So to prove the maximality, I am considering in other way that suppose I have an element which is not part of U and V is adjacent to neither U nor V. So I wanted to prove maximality, but contradictionally I am assuming that there is a element W which is not adjacent to both U and V. Then what has happened, since these two are not adjacent, W plus U comma N not equal to 1 and W plus V comma N not equal to 1. Using this, I can conclude that 2W plus U plus V comma N not equal to 1. So which means I already have this V as Z minus U mod N. This means this Z is in IP. Since P is not equal to 2, the GCD of W comma N is again 1. Therefore, what happened? This W plus U comma N is 1, which implies where this U is part of, this U must be part of always IP. But where I am took this I took UV from the element which is not part of IP. Okay, therefore I get the contradiction, which means W is adjacent to either U or V, which means my claim is getting true that I found a maximal independent set of cardinality 2, as well as in the previous page I have find a maximal independent set as IP. That IP has cardinality actually which is not equal to 2. Therefore, the cardinality of the IP is always more than N by P. That N by P is always more than 2. Therefore, I have a 2 different maximal independent set. Therefore, this graph is not Cohen-Macaulay, not well covered. So, because of the way I think I have another less than 10 minutes of time. Therefore, I don't want to go into the proof of the composite integers. So I would like to give you the general structure. So hereafter we are going to consider the composite integers P1 power alpha 1 up to Pk power alpha k. According to that, what we are going to do is using this composition, we are trying to make this composition into the isomorphic subgraphs. What is the isomorphic subgraph? From G of n into K isomorphic subgraph. So this isomorphic subgraph with the Cartesian product of graph is isomorphic to my own graph. So I just avoid the proof of this. Okay, so this is what the lemma. This is one of the major lemma for me. What this lemma says that if n is a composite integer and each prime are the distinct prime divisors and alpha are positive integers, then for every 1 less than or equal to I less than or equal to K, the set I am denoted as something like UI. Like then this I have composited into P1s. Each PIs I have a subgraphs. This isomorphic graph, using this isomorphic relations, what I am going to prove that this is always a maximal independent set. So I am having like UI, this UI gives you a maximal independent sets of this graph. Since this graph is isomorphic to my own graph G of n, what I am going to retrieve that from here into my graph, I can give you another one in my maximal independent sets. So I just move into the, because of the time restriction, I avoid the proofs. So here it is. So after the final conclusion, what I am saying is my graph G of n is well covered if and only if n is power of 2. Only in case of power of 2, I have a well coveredness. All other cases, I don't have the well coveredness. This is what the main theorem. Using this theorem, we are going to construct them to our main theorem that G of n is Cohen-Macaulay if and only if n equal to 2, which means what I should have from the well coveredness, I have a prime power. All the prime powers are my well covered graphs. As we already seen that these well covered graphs are nothing but complete graphs of k of n by 2 comma n by 2. We already have that bipartite graph. Complete bipartite graph is Cohen-Macaulay only if k 1 comma 1. So in that case, I conclude that n equal to 2. Using these results, we prove that n equal to 1. This is for G of n. And just what is the use of this result? Here is an application of this result. If I consider n equal to 6, I end up with this cycle on 6 vertices. Still nobody knows that whether this cycle on 6 vertices is either Cohen-Macaulay or not Cohen-Macaulay. So for this, now my theorems gives a proof of it, like since this G6 is not Cohen-Macaulay, my graph cycle on 6 vertices is also not Cohen-Macaulay, which means the corresponding edge ring of this type is also not Cohen-Macaulay. This is what the application of this result. Similarly, you can have, this is a graph of 9 vertices. This graph is also not Cohen-Macaulay. Therefore, this gives a lot of non-Cohen-Macaulay graphs. So I maybe stop at this moment. I don't want to go into the complement because of the time restriction. I'm ready to answer your questions, clarification, discussions.
Okay, thank you very much for your talk. Are there any questions to Professor Azir?
Yes, yes.
I would like to ask a question.
Yeah, sure, please.
I found it very interesting. At the beginning, is the Cohen-Macaulay property depending on the choice of the underlying field? It seems to me that sometimes you assume that the characteristic of the field must be 0, but maybe that is, well, I don't have an insight. And I have a second question. Why is Macaulay such an interesting, Cohen-Macaulay such an interesting property? Why wouldn't you just talk about, for example, Dedekind or Noetherian or any other property of a commutative ring? So 2 questions, sorry.
Okay, so especially in the initial stage, we are working on graph from rings. From my point of view, we started working on graph which are constructed from rings like Cayley graphs, zero divisor graphs, and other thing. And then we came to know that Cohen-Macaulayness, finding Cohen-Macaulayness in computative algebra is very much important questions, which also have some applications in graph theory as well. So for that reason, we are moving from studying graph from rings into this Cohen-Macaulayness. That's why we are using the I'm selecting the Cohen-Macaulayness. There is no special other reasons behind that. I think this is what your question, right? Professor?
No, the other question was about the characteristic of the underlying field.
The underlying field, yeah. This underlying field, even in terms of graph, the underlying field has no, there is no play on it. Okay, so therefore, for all the field, it will work. Therefore, it will give the large number of Cohen-Macaulay rings or not. In the first slide itself, I gave you like for graphs, we used to call it as Cohen-Macaulay over F, but since this field F has no play on it in terms of graph theory, we avoid the over F and we used to call it as Cohen-Macaulay. Whatever the field within in the graph will do the things.
Okay, I think, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the questions. Are there any questions? Well, actually, I also wonder which kind of problems in graph theory can be solved using this approach.
Maybe there is we don't think about that because this is very fresh subject. Only bipartite graphs, trees, and some of the very basic results are available at present. Therefore, we have to look about that. For us, independent set is the only property which plays a strong role here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about colorings?
Yeah, we never come across with coloring and other things about these subjects. It is very fresh. Maybe this is the 5th or 6th paper according to graph theory, Cohen-Macaulayness of the graph theory.
Oh, I see. Well, but do you have the list of reference at the end of your presentation?
I need to stop my presentation, right?
No. I'm just asking, do you have the list of references at the end?
Yeah, list of, yes, I have.
Oh, you have it, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have.
Oh, I see, good, very nice, yeah. It will be useful for us because the topic is really very new and yeah, we need to get some feelings some knowledge.
Yeah. So in terms of Cohen-Macaulay-Innes, this is for unit graph. These two papers we have submitted recently, the third and fourth. And about the Cohen-Macaulay-Innes of graphs, this is the one of the paper in 2006, appeared in Journal of Combinatorial Theory Series A. And then for Boolean graph, it is on communication in algebra. And the third paper of this subject is here, Cohen-Macaulay-Innes of circular graph, which is again in communication in algebra. And the Villari publications about the trees are in Manuscripta Mathematica. Okay, so these are the 4-5 papers on this subject.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions to Professor Azir? If not, then let us thank speaker again. Thank you very much for such an interesting talk. And our next